I worked at NASA headquarters here in DC, in Southwest DC at the time, and I had a real like epiphany moment on this issue. I was standing in my colleague's office, Walid Abdullati, who is the cryospheric sciences program manager, which just means he studies ice. And he had the Arctic sea ice data from 2002 pulled up on a screen. And I came in and we were just chatting about, kids, whatever. And he was like, oh, now I have to deal with this. Like, Goddard sent over this data. It's all wrong. And we were looking at it and I was just like, wow, that does look wrong. Like, there's like all this sea ice missing. And it really it had a big effect on me. It just immediately my mind went to all of the implications of that, of climate change happening faster than certainly, just having come out of grad school at that point, I was not anticipating having a lot of observed impacts in a very short period of time. I was expecting some time before seeing this stuff. And it really hit me, I was just thinking about, tens of thousands of years of coevolution of climate and species brought us white polar bears and Arctic foxes, and was it really possible that this was unraveling before our eyes in our lifetime? And it just really struck me that this is something I needed to spend a lot more time on and work on. And I had a really great boss at the time, and I went to my boss, Jack Kay, who was awesome, and I said, I really want to work on climate change, and he said, great, let's find a way for you to do it. And so I started working on communications of climate science at NASA, which was great. But a really important moment in my life, obviously, because it changed my entire career. But I also, after doing that for a few years, I realized that I really wanted to be doing more hands-on stuff, and that is what brought me to World Wildlife Fund. So for me, a big moment of optimism and hope was this People's Climate March on September 20th. WWF, we turned out a lot of our members. I was in a documentary promoting the march. We put a lot of effort into mainstreaming the march. We have a pretty mainstream following. We have a likable brand. We have super high likability levels. And so what part of the reason we wanted to engage was not everybody feels comfortable marching, and we wanted people to feel comfortable coming out. We wanted to say, hey, this is a normal thing to come out and participate in a march on climate change. And it was the biggest public demonstration in this country in 20 years. It was huge. Was anybody there here? Yeah, so huge, yeah? You gonna be with me on that? It was an amazing moment, and there was this moment when, everybody threw up their hands and there was a moment of silence for 2 minutes in the middle of Manhattan.
We didn't make it quite that long.
But it was...
It was about 10 seconds of silence.
You guys were in the youth contingent, I'm guessing. It was silent over by us. We were way in the back in the solutions area. But for me, the big moment of realization was when that ended, you could actually physically hear these sound waves traveling up Central Park West. And then they hit you, and it was almost physical, and then it was your turn, and you joined. And that moment of togetherness is what makes this possible. It's only going to be possible if we're all doing it together. It's only going to be possible when horrible news stories come out, if people don't hide under their blankets over it, which is what we've had people doing on climate change. In terms of public engagement, our main barrier has been anxiety. The other side gets people angry. We get people depressed. Depressed people don't make phone calls. Depressed people don't vote. Depressed people don't do what we need them to do. And we need people to be excited and engaged. And that was the march was a turning point, I believe, in us being able to show as a movement optimism and hope. Yeah, I think that was really important, and I think all of the documentaries kind of additively become very important. I think it will be more important when it has actually entered the cultural sphere where everyday music that people are listening to is about this issue. And so I honestly don't even know what music people listen to right now. But what you want is the top artists who people are listening to be so moved by this issue that they are sharing their passion for it through mediums that are less political. and are more able to touch people emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is a turning point that we saw with, you know, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the anti-Vietnam War protests. We saw a lot of mass cultural engagement on the issues, and I actually think that's very important. It's not kind of my world. I don't even know what music people listen to, but I know it's really important that people, you know, and I think that, you know, from a student perspective, one of the things that's really important to realize is that there are a million ways in which you can make a big difference in the climate movement. I mean, you can be sitting in a company making a huge difference. You can be in an advocacy organization. You can be in government. You can be an artist. You can be a civil servant. You can be an elected official. And everyone plays a different role, but everyone has something enormous to offer to this movement. And the tagline for the march was, you know, to change everything, it takes everyone. And I really believe that's true. Like, I have total faith that together we can do this. I'm super optimistic. Part of what brings me to my optimism I have today is that I think we do not have all our eggs in one basket. In 2009, we had all our eggs in one basket. It was all about one piece of legislation and one treaty, and it had to get through. We have our eggs in like a dozen baskets right now. We're pushing on every front. We're pushing on the public utility commissions. We're pushing on cities. We're pushing on states. We're getting people to deploy. We're getting companies to deploy renewable electricity. We're building movements, grassroots movements from the ground up. We're working to bring new members into our climate movement. That we have eggs in a million baskets, and everybody has something to offer. And I actually think that, you know, as I said, a gap right now is the artist community weighing in on this. And you're right, you know, Chasing Eyes. There are examples of it, but it's still it's still a documentary.
Yep.
You know, like what I'm looking for is like the people who are really popular today to be weighing in.